All right, you guys, so let's go ahead and get into it. We have got our lesson on rate of change, so everyone should have their sheet out. This is, again, more kind of material that you've seen before in Algebra 1, but we're going to cover it once again. So make sure that you feel confident with this by the time I am back tomorrow. So what I'm going to do is we're going to find slope using 2 points. Instead of being given a graph where I can just count the rise over run, I'm going to actually calculate it myself. Right? So if you guys remember before, if we're given 2 points, right, if I actually had a line, I know I would count rise over run. But rise is just the change in y. Change is like subtraction, so the difference in y. Sometimes we use a triangle to represent that. Over run, which is the change in x. So that's kind of why this formula ends up working out, right? Subtract my y's and then divide by subtracting my x's. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the easiest way that I find that there is to do this and organize things. The first thing I do is just write out my points. So negative 8, 6 and negative 8, 2. They give me points and they say what is the slope of the line that passes through them. Now I know I'm going to set up a fraction, right? And I know it's going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? We get that from our formula. We also know that that's change in y over change in x. If it helps you and you don't feel like you will know this, you can totally label your problems. I know these are both x and y. The first pair are 1s, the second pair are 2s, right? So now I can go ahead and find what these numbers are and just plug them into my equation, right? So y2 looks like it is 2. I subtract y1, which is 6. And then on the bottom, something interesting happens. I get negative 8 minus negative 8. So what happens there? It looks like I get double negative, so positive. So when I actually subtract here, I get negative 4 over 0. This is a problem. If you calculate this in your calculator, you will not end up getting an answer, right? It says it doesn't work. So what we call this is not 0. 0 is, 0 over any kind of number. If you get a denominator of 0, this is really undefined. So hopefully we kind of remember what that means from Algebra 1, but a little bit of review there of what that might mean. Obviously, nice problems work out with, 2 numbers that are nice, but in this case it doesn't. Okay, so that's the first one. Hey, you're always welcome to go ahead and look at this again if you don't get these down at the same pace that I'm doing. So do your best to take notes as I'm going. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. So I'm going to do the same thing for these, you guys. I'm not going to rewrite them because they're actually listed very nicely here, but I have my x's and y's, x1, y1, x2, y2. The pairs, it doesn't really matter which pair you make y1s and 2s, but I usually just pick the first one as my y1s. And then again, I'm going to plug in, right? Negative 6 minus negative 7. On the bottom, negative 11 minus negative 9, right? And then we're going to add in our calculator or somewhere. So negative 6 plus 7 gives me 1. Negative 11 plus 9 gives me negative 2. So my overall slope doesn't need to be reduced at all. It really is just negative 1/2, right? If you leave it like this and circle it, I would still accept that. But really, remember, we usually like to put those negatives right in the front. So that looks good. Let's go ahead and go through our last one. If you're working ahead, then you should check your answer with me. So I've got 2, 8, 12, 20. And same thing. This time I'm not going to label them. I'm going to go through and make sure that you understand where these are coming from. I've got 20 minus 8 over 12 minus 2. Now let's see what happens with this one. 20 minus 8 is 12. 12 minus 2 is 10. Now, we've talked about this before. 12 over 10 is not an acceptable answer. And the reason is it's not completely reduced. So we got to think, what can I reduce both of those by? Well, I think I could divide them both by 2. Right? And that looks like the biggest number I can divide them by. So really my answer is 6 over 5. My final reduced answer. You got to make sure you go all the way through there. Reduce all of your values, all your fractions, all that stuff. And remember, leave them as fractions. You do not need to turn these into decimals, right? So this is your first page, okay? This video will stay on Schoology if you need to come and look at it one more time. So we are going to go ahead and apply this to the next page, which is tables, and it looks like graphs, right? This is review that we've done before. So what is the rate of change of the line represented by the table? Now, the only change between this and what we just did is now you have to select 2 points. Well, if these are all x and y, I could select any 2 points, doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna select the first 2 I see. I'm gonna use this purple point and this yellow point. So usually what helps me is, again, actually writing out the coordinates, right? The ordered pairs. And it looks like here, these are my points, right? -2, -7, and -1, -4. So as I go through these, I'm going to do the same thing that I've been doing. Label my x's and y's, right? And go from there. My 1s and my 2s. So I end up with -4 minus -7 and -1 minus -2 for a grand total of +3 on top. And it looks like just 1 on the bottom. So my final slope is not 3/1. It would just be 3. Okay, and again, that's my overall slope. Looks correct to me, right? Our change, our overall slope, rate of change, is just 3. Okay, so if you've noticed, there's a direct correlation, right? Rate of change, this is just slope. That's all this means. So if I were in class, I would have hopefully mentioned that earlier. But that's something to take note of. Rate of change is, again, the rate at which you are changing, which is your slope, right? Every time you draw that change in y and change in x, that's how much you're changing each time. Okay, so next one, I definitely want you to give it a shot if you're kind of working ahead, right? Give these a shot. Make sure you're trying them. And I'm going to do this one just kind of slowly here. I'll give you a second to write out maybe the start to your problem. And then I'm going to put up my work without the points or anything like that labeled. Okay, it looks like here I get 5 minus 3, and this is me selecting the first 2 coordinates. Okay, it doesn't matter which ones you do, you should get the same answer. But 5 minus 3 on top, and then 1 minus 0 on the bottom. This is another one that ends up working out quite nicely. I get a slope overall of 2. Okay, so that's all the notes for today, you guys. That's really the main stuff that we're going through. I will go ahead and go through these last 2 problems just to make sure we kind of know what's going on. But if you've been following this video, hopefully you're on track with me or you're way ahead, okay? So I'm going to do these with you if you need some help. Otherwise, you can work on them on your own and just check your answer as you hear me kind of go through it. This next review question, right, done with rate of change, that's going to come back in the notes. This one says find the slope. So remember, I want to find 2 nice points, clear points on the coordinate plane, and figure out what's the rate of change, right? How much do I go up? How much do I go to the right? Is my slope positive or negative? It looks like here I have 1 and 3. So my rise is 1, my run is 3, and it's not negative. It looks to be positive. So I have a slope of 1/3. Okay, and the last one is graphing a line that has a slope of 1/6 and goes through the point 0, -9. So I'm going to go down 9 for my point, and then I can do my slope, up 1/6. Okay, that line should be super clear, arrows at the end. And then it looks like we're good. We've covered all territory on this sheet, so I'll zoom out. Should be able to see the entire screen, all of our tables, all the types of rate of change we did today, all that stuff. So I hope this is clear. Past now, you should be working on pages 5 and 6 in your packet. Okay, they should have to do with all this rate of change stuff. And then if you finish, there's an answer key on the podium you can check with. And then I want all of that just turned in for me to take a look at tomorrow. We'll handle it in class. All right, everything else should be on Schoology if you need access to anything to double check yourself as well. Okay, so good luck for the rest of class. I will see you tomorrow.